Alright, so the moment we've all been waiting for has arrived. Loki, the series, is finally here, and I am already a fan. This review contains spoilers, so definitely watch the show before watching this review. So let's get started with a quick summary. Basically, this episode starts with a scene from Avengers Endgame where Loki escapes with the Tesseract. And right there, the show already hooked me. I feel like every show should start with a scene from a previous movie. I'm a huge fan of the continuity. Loki transports himself to a desert where the TVA arrests him. Another thing the show did really well was establish the TVA as badass, just like they did with Thanos. Thanos' big first scene in Infinity War was him killing Loki, the former badass villain, establishing himself as the bigger badass. Suddenly, all those Thanos nutsack chin jokes weren't so funny anymore, and the audience knew that the Avengers were in trouble. Now, in the TVA, they have a little animation short that I really liked because one, it reminded me of a Disney ride, and two, it was one of those really good animated explanations. It simplified the concept of the multiverse and also had a couple Easter eggs, including one of a dude that looked very much like Kang the Conqueror, a villain we could potentially see very soon. We then meet Owen Wilson, who plays Mobius, at a crime scene that the TVA is investigating involving some dead TVA agents. Mobius meets a little kid, and when he asks who did this, the kid points to a glass window that has a picture of the devil. And no, this is not Mephisto, but I do feel like someone in Marvel was cracking up realizing that they were going to make Mephisto trend on Twitter for another week. Mobius comes back to the TVA and stops the judge from erasing Loki so that he can help him. Loki and Mobius go through Loki's file a bit, including the death of his mother and the fact that Loki is DB Cooper, which is as good of a theory as any in my opinion. Mobius goes outside for a minute and Loki escapes. He explores the TVA and finds Infinity Stones in a drawer at a receptionist's desk. The receptionist calls them paperweights, which I'll talk about more later. Loki then decides to watch the entirety of his file, which is basically a collection of what happened in the MCU. And honestly, who wouldn't? I, for one, probably wouldn't be able to help myself if I was in his shoes. He sees Odin's death, he sees himself become good, a friend and an ally to Thor, and lastly, he also sees his own death at the hands of Thanos. This helps him realize that he really doesn't have much of a glorious purpose as he previously believed. Loki then decides to take up Mobius' offer to help when he has a breakthrough moment. He talks about how he doesn't like hurting others, but it's how people like him who are weak maintain power. Mobius sees the growth and tells Loki that the person he needs help hunting is him, so he's uniquely qualified for the job. Right after that, we see a TVA squad getting trapped and killed by who we assume is the person Mobius is hunting. This person being Loki, kinda. Now let's start with the things I really didn't love. There are only two and they're not huge complaints, but I still think they're worth mentioning. So number one, they said that the Avengers going back in time was supposed to happen, but for some reason, Loki getting the Tesseract wasn't supposed to happen. This doesn't make any sense in my head because didn't Doctor Strange say there was only one scenario where they would win, meaning that Loki escaping was meant to happen? I don't know if you guys are following, but maybe I'm just out of my mind. I hope they clarify how that's possible. And number two, which really annoyed me, was the whole tons of Infinity Stones in a drawer and the Infinity Stones equals paperweights thing. I have a huge problem with that scene. I liked how the TVA didn't allow stones to work. It made Loki realize that the stuff he knew was meaningless. I get it, it's an aha moment for Loki. But I do think they took it a little too far with the drawer full of Infinity Stones and calling them paperweights. I mean, two main Avengers lost their lives because of these stones, not to mention that the whole MCU saga to this point was based on them. It's annoying to diminish their value like that, in my opinion. That being said, everything else in this show was amazing. Loki shows growth, Mobius looks cool, the villain looks scary. There's a whole build up going on. I have no idea which direction the show will go in, which is always a plus because I love to be surprised, and the comedy is on point. What more could one ask for? Now, I believe that the villain that they are chasing is Sophia DiMartino's character, who was teased earlier in a press conference, who I'm now convinced is playing Lady Loki, a female version of Loki from the comics. Also, I do get the feeling that this villain isn't as bad as we think at the moment, and the TVA or the Timekeepers, particularly Kang, will be the real villains at the end. This villain might honestly just join the team as a good guy, or at least befriend Loki. But we'll find out more next week, and I cannot wait for episode 2. Please drop your thoughts on this episode down below, and I'll see you in the next video.